Hi guys, weekly market outlook today on Monday, 22nd of September. Holy moly, what a week this was. We saw the interest rate decisions, the various interest rate decisions, and want to shed some light into what might happen moving forward. First of all, the dollar gearing up some strength, and we want to examine what this has to do with the actual market momentum. Equities continued to rock the show to the upside, silver and gold moving higher, but crypto is seemingly correcting. So welcome back and let's check straight on the charts what goes. In this case, this week we have a set of data which might be interesting for all of us, and that's going to be something which we should examine. This week we got manufacturing PMI data from the Eurozone. Whether this is going to move markets might be the question. In Germany, the data is expected to rise somewhat, which should generally, as soft data, basically it's a survey, right? Should move the markets to higher levels. The euro could gear up some momentum. The DAX might rise, but let's start with the euro. The common currency is moving somehow higher, has been moving higher, but with a technical pin bar candlestick pattern here, the market might be projected to basically start rolling over to lower levels. The US dollar's strength currently kind of emphasized by the Federal Reserve. Well, the rate cut should usually, or a rate cut should usually cause the currency to weaken. But in this case, the previous weakening of the dollar, basically euro dollar moving higher, had happened already. And now, since the fact is setting in, we might see that the market momentum is just starting to move to the opposite side, causing a bit of a downshift in this market. This could be of particular impact, obviously, moving forward, as the greenback's strength might also harm equity markets. Yeah, so we could see that the stock market is going to move further to lower price levels as we currently observe, and the market momentum is positive. Looking in particular at the S&P 500 index, the market moving to higher levels. However, the volatility increases, and we could see that the market's momentum at some point stalls out. Speaking of the S&P 500, as we can see in the charts at the moment, the upside is looking positive. However, the later a couple of trading days or even 2 weeks basically in the month of September might offer some negative headlines, and hence obviously traditionally had caused the S&P, the Nasdaq, among other US indices to weaken. Whether this is going to be the same this month might be in question. However, the upside currently being intact, yet stronger dollar obviously makes US investments from the outside perspective more expensive, and hence obviously could cause the market moving lower. I kept saying this for the recent couple of trading weeks, and I still remain in my long positions in the US stocks. However, the downside, the risks to the downside might intensify, in particular also with the new development in the US. Donald Trump, he wants to implement a higher fee for foreign workers. The talks are about 100,000 US dollars per annum in terms of getting your green card approved, or well, applying for your green card in the US is the big question. So now not only tariffs for the import of overseas goods, but also for the imports of overseas workers. Let's see how the story unfolds, because headlines currently might tell us the story could remain kind of utterly complicated in regards to US investments and obviously the economic development in general. Furthermore, this week we got manufacturing data from the UK. The pound under pressure. Is the data coming out positive? Or if the data kicks in positive, this might cause the market to move up some sort of momentum. Yet, if we are looking at the pound US dollar currency pair, we can observe the same technical pattern, this beautiful pin bar candlestick pattern. For me, bread and butter of trading, basically any weakening below the support area might just cause the markets to push to lower price levels. The UK has been kind of negatively behaving in terms of recent headlines as well. And any negative development, looking at the manufacturing PMI data, expected slightly higher. So better data should cause the market or the pound to move higher. Any expressed weakness in this market might be of opposite opinion, potentially causing the market motivation to weaken even further. So it remains quite interesting to observe how much momentum and how much motivation the market will give us here in order to kind of determine the futures trend here. But the pound at the moment looks set for further weakness. By the way, guys, check out the pound Aussie currency pair. We examined this also last week, still looking about to fall further with the long-term development on the monthly chart. Moving further, the Australian dollar, which brings us to the next topic. We got some news on Wednesday this week. The Aussie had strengthened basically towards the monthly 50 moving average, which is currently projected to basically weaken even further if I'm asking my glass ball. However, if we are looking at the weekly chart, we get the same candlestick pattern, the same pin bar candlestick pattern, telling us that this might be something which gives us some headwinds for the Australian dollar. Any weakness of the Aussie might lead to weakness of the S&P 500 or vice versa, whatever is first. But the downside momentum is kind of quite interesting here at the moment. What keeps me kind of rather being positive for the Aussie is that we've been trading above, and that's the weekly chart, above this 50 moving average. So that might cause for the markets to basically weaken, yet slightly weaken only, instead of what we've seen or what we can observe in the British pound at the moment. Hence again, the view back to the pound Australian dollar currency pair. News-wise, we got the consumer price index out of Australia. It's coming out on early morning, Wednesday early morning, at 2.9%. If the consumer prices will increase, this would vice versa obviously support the Australian dollar and hence obviously cause the currency, the Aussie, to potentially gear up some slight momentum. So it depends a bit on how you observe the market's development, but the momentum obviously of the Aussie might really depend on the recent set of, or the current set of incoming data, which is going to be projective obviously for the future determination of the market trend. Thursday, it might be kind of quite interesting as well, as we get another piece of news out of Switzerland. The Swiss National Bank is moving and potentially further looking to give us some insights in regards to the interest rate. It's not expected to be adjusted, remaining at 0 percentage points, but the US dollar against the Swiss franc is super interesting at the moment. The market long-term been moving to lower price level. Is this going to continue is the question. And again, as we had it with the other currency pairs previously, the US dollar gearing up some momentum. And so is the story unfolding in the dollar against the Swiss franc. Currently, the market might move actually to higher levels. Beautiful pin bar candlestick. And if the market's price is stalling out, for the trend line here, if the market is stalling out at these lower price level without moving towards or below this market's trend here, then the upside might kind of continue with potential targets at several levels. This is the next level we have in hand here, followed by support area here, which might be another resistance which had been tested previously and could be of a major resistance as well in the near future. So that's the major news we have so far this week, and that's at least the major important impact which we could see. Furthermore, we see the development of the dollar. Is the producer price or the consumer price index moving further? Recently, the data suggested not much, but we have the personal consumption expenditures, the PCE index, coming out on Friday. Any higher levels, and this is expected to basically kind of weaken slightly. Let's look at the economic calendar here. We can observe that the PCE is expected to move slightly lower. Any surprise rise in the PCE index might give us a further positive move in regards to the greenback's motivation, to the US dollar's motivation. If the market's prices are rising, the greenback, the dollar, typically rises with it. However, the important story might be with different or within different markets, as we shall take a look into the silver market. Silver has been rising despite the dollar's strength. Remember, if the dollar gears up momentum, obviously everything measured in dollar terms would weaken. Silver should weaken, gold should weaken, cryptos should weaken. Currently, though, the break of this higher level here in the silver market is kind of quite cool, but the market's pricing is moving in elevated terms with quite a strong, sharp upside move, and we are about to test this 45, 44, whatever technical resistance pattern, which could give us the impactful momentum towards prices moving to weaken. I'm an advocate of weaker prices in the silver market. If we see a correction in equities, and if we see headlines from the economy, if we see a downtrend in the equity market, the demand in silver might weaken, and hence vice versa, prices should fall. So there we go. This is at least my outlook here for the silver market, which might offer some negative headlines moving forward, only if the equity market will face some sort of corrective measures. Gold, on the other hand, looks similarly kind of strong for now. All-time high, $3,700 per ounce. Quite a statement when looking at financial markets currently, but the upside looks set to remain rather strong. Yet, correction in equities, also gold prices might weaken. Why? Because traders which are deleveraging their portfolios basically would sell what makes them profit, giving them some profit, and that's obviously what the gold price could be as well. So stay tuned for further developments here. Medium term, I would say gold might gear up momentum even more, comparing it with the silver market. So there we go. The markets in gold looking kind of quite positive moving forward. That's the majority in market motivation. News-wise, we have a medium array of news this week, as I stated before, but we should talk about the crypto market, because earlier this morning we saw that in particular Bitcoin has started to weaken further. That was earlier this week so far, and the market momentum in the crypto space might remain rather a bit shaky. Let's examine what I just mentioned and talked about while looking at the Bitcoin chart in particular. On the daily chart, the Bitcoin moved below the 50 moving average. That in itself would be something of rather negative headlines for now. On the weekly chart, however, the market still remains in, and let's see, it depends a bit on the price pattern. We are still within the uptrend here, and still might see that the market is just about to kind of resume upside if buyers will step in. Well, the trend is moving from the Bitcoin dominance towards the altcoin season currently. If more funds flow towards the altcoins, less would go towards Bitcoin. However, we still need Bitcoin to move the market to the upside. The leading factor, Nasdaq, obviously is still moving higher, so that's of positivity here. But while moving to the Ethereum as a market, for example, we can observe that Ethereum as well broke the supportive 50 moving average trend line, but remains obviously in the long-term trend to the upside, and that's still projected to cause the market to move higher here. Only if this level is being broken, basically Ethereum is expected to weaken further. For now, the market looks positive here, and upside might still continue. XRP similarly looking, and I still believe that this is currently just a corrective pattern, profit taking early of the week. We still have a couple of trading days towards the end of the month, so I wouldn't kind of throw in the towel for now. With Solana, the same story is happening. Solana still has quite a bit of a movement here, or motivation to rise higher. Currently, the market's falling back to lower levels. This might just be a retest of lower prices after prices being extremely positive. Quite often a corrective pattern might just help market motivation in order to determine the future trend. So this week, medium economic data, PMI data, PCE indicator on Friday, which is worth looking for. We see oil prices moving slightly lower. We see precious metals still extremely stable, and it depends a bit on the future determination of the US and the government, obviously on the strength of the dollar. That's the guiding and leading factor at the moment. And until then, guys, thanks for watching. Wishing you all the best. Have a good one trading. Talk to you later. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and obviously leave your comments under the video as usual. Stay tuned. See you soon. Bye-bye.